One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Doug Gillin. Doug is the Director of Athletics at Appalachian State. Greetings, Doug. Thanks for joining us.
Greetings, Ty. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Doug, I have you on today. You're in going in your fourth year there at App State. You spent 10 years with IMG, culminating as the Senior Vice President for College Properties, 3 years there in Missouri with Mike Alden. And altogether, you've been in the college athletics industry for roughly 20 plus years. A lot of your background is in marketing and sales, and so I kind of want to ask you about that. What aspect of those roles helped you prepare for your position at Missouri when you came back as a deputy director over external operations?
Well, I think it was certainly a culmination of everywhere I've been. You got to take those experiences with you. When I went to the University of Missouri in 2012, it was right when the entry, when Mizzou's entry into the SEC was getting ready to start. That was going to be the first year. So certainly, as being a deputy athletic director with my primary responsibilities over, the development areas and marketing, certainly all aspects of ticketing, fundraising, was, how could we have some more focus on revenue acquisition? And so with that, we looked at all those areas, and certainly coming from my sales background at ISP, then IMG was, that was every day was revenue acquisition in terms of, a sales-focused company. So a lot of, sales principles and development principles are transferable because it's really about relationship building. And so, certainly learned that throughout the years that, people in any walk aren't going to support or invest with you if you don't have a relationship with them first and foremost, if you don't have a vision for what you'd like them to invest in. And I think throughout my career, it's been talking to folks, getting them to invest in a vision, and whether it's at ISP and we were working with, 80 plus, and then when it was IMG, it was 100 plus different universities, or certainly when you're at the University of Missouri, getting them to invest in the vision. And at that time, it was, we were transitioning into the SEC. And certainly when you transition into the SEC, there's a lot of different things that come with it. Is how can you look at your facilities, look at your travel, look at how you're training, the nutrition, the academic aspect, every aspect of student athlete well-being, and make sure that you're at the top of the game, and all of those, and they all require revenue. And so with that, we were able to kind of put together a vision, articulate that vision, and then go out and talk to folks about supporting it, and we had success doing that.
I'd imagine you had a staff at IMG. Tell me about the differences in, the staff when you're working for a company whose constituency is all over, a whole bunch of different institutions, as opposed to coming in and now you're working and you're on campus and you got the student athletes, you got donors, you got various external companies you're dealing with and partners and those kind of things. What was the difference there for you when you returned to campus?
Well, I think maybe two-part answer is, one is your constituency base is certainly a lot larger when you're on campus. You have to be mindful of a lot of different folks and universities, donors, the university leadership, and all of the facets of the university leadership, all of the community aspects and community government and all the politics, and then certainly donors, student athletes, coaches, other administrators, et cetera. So the constituency base, you have to be cognizant of how vast it is and make sure to the best of your ability that you're touching that base in different ways. And then, from a staffing standpoint, it's actually, it's smaller from a relational standpoint and working with the folks every day. At ISP, I had a large staff, but they were geographically displaced, so you didn't see them every day. A lot of it was email and phone. The great part about being on a campus is, the folks that you work with, you're seeing them every day. And I feel like even the relationship internally with the folks that you're working with every day it can be stronger because, you get to learn them a little more intimately about their families and about them and how they work and what makes them tick from a work standpoint. So the staffing is obviously smaller but more intimate versus like at an ISP, it's bigger, a little bit more diverse, not as intimate in terms of relationship building even internally. But in terms of putting together a vision and articulating that vision to constituencies, there's a lot of different messaging touch points that you have to hit when you're in a university setting on campus.
Well, you get there, Missouri deputy director, and you're working for Mike Alden. Mike Alden is legendary in terms of producing leaders, right, and athletic directors and those type of things. I wonder, in the time, I think it was 3 years you spent there as a deputy, what did you learn or what did you get in terms of leadership development and running an athletics department when working under Mike?
It's vast. The great thing about Mike is he wants to and is invested in you and your leadership development personally and professionally. So and he knows, if you just look across the country, all the athletic directors that have worked with him and gone on to be athletic directors, it's easy to tell that he invests in you personally and professionally to get to be an athletic director. And so with that, I certainly have learned that and taken that with me. I try to do the same here. One of the first questions I ask folks is, where do they want to be and what's their career goals? And that's the same thing Mike asked me. And then you can invest with them and strategically plan how to, from a career development standpoint, how to get them where they want to go. And he did the same with me. And so, one of the things it kind of transcends throughout every part of the department is really attention to detail. We talked about that all the time, and that could be, what the parking lot looks like before a game. It can be, how you're conducting a coaching search. It can be how you're working with your staff and communicating with your staff, to make sure there's no ambiguity and people know the direction when you're talking with coaches, from, year-end evaluation, make sure that's detailed and point on what expectations are. So, the kind of underneath that attention to detail umbrella was a lot of things that are transferable to every conversation that you're having, how you're developing as a leader, and then how you're communicating with the folks with whom you work to make sure that they're developing as leaders as well. And so, part of that too is from a relational standpoint, to make sure, and Mike he cared as much about you personally as he did professionally. And that's something certainly all great leaders do, and he did there, and try to emulate that when I moved on. But there is a lot of different, and I always, even today, it could be a lot of different situations, and I'll be like, yeah, this is, what would Mike do? And that's how I try to run our department here.
That's funny. What would Mike do, huh? Let's make that a new term, right?
Yeah, maybe a catchphrase.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you move on and become an athletics director, right? You're running your program. And I imagine that attention to detail that you learned under Mike included watching how he made decisions and watching his strategic thinking in terms of what it took and the collaborative leadership he probably had there in Missouri. How long into your tenure as athletic director did it take for you to feel comfortable as the person making the final decision, because they probably immediately started coming at you, the decisions you had to make when you assumed the chair there at App State?
Yeah, I think in one of those things, so you have to feel comfortable right away in terms of making decisions, because people are going to look at you to do that. To add to the list of the certainly things that I learned from Mike is that, there's a lot of things coming at you fast, and a lot of different folks have a different sense of urgency in terms of when and how they think that decision needs to be made versus, if you just push pause, get all the facts, process what exactly the question might be that you're trying to decide upon. That was one of the things certainly that we talked about a lot is, from a collaborative standpoint is, make sure that you understand what the sense of urgency is, and make sure that you don't let somebody else's sense of urgency be your own, because as a decision maker, you've got to take in all the facts and then make a decision. You can't make a decision without all the facts, and sometimes those take a while to compile and make sure that you're making the most informed decision that you can. So I think that I was comfortable and have been comfortable making decisions, but I think certainly what might be new as you kind of sit in the chair for the first time and people are coming at you and saying, hey, I want a decision, they might not be used to saying, hey, pause, and let's take a step back. What are all the facts? And then let's make an informed decision. And once certainly when I'm dealing with those type of circumstances and making decisions, that is how I like to do it. And then our folks learn that, hey, they'll come in not just say I need a decision, but here's the question at hand. Here's all the facts, and then what do we think we should do? that makes it a lot easier and a lot more comfortable when everybody understands and is on the same page that, hey, it's not, we've got to make this potentially critical decision right now.
How long does that take for the staff to understand you, right? Obviously, you go in and you're going to do what you can to understand the staff. But in terms of them, how long did it, as you look back, right? How long did it take for the staff to understand your way of thinking in terms of taking a step back? Give me the information, I'll process on it, and then we'll make a decision.
Well, I think once you go through it a time or two, now it still happens today that someone might come in and say, hey, we need to make a decision. Then we have to remind each other that, all right, what's all the facts? And, and who else does this decision impact? And probably should have said that earlier, but a lot of times in our seats that you're making decisions that impact all these other constituents that we spoke about earlier. So you can't just make a decision without informing a lot of people, asking a lot of people what their thoughts are. And I think sometimes folks might not realize, hey, yeah, we might know what we think we want to do, but there's a lot of other folks that this decision would impact that you need to touch base with before you make that decision. And I think it's an ongoing process, that you have to continue to remind yourself, hey, okay, here's the situation at hand, here's the question, who does this impact? How do I make sure that I'm touching all my bases with that person's constituencies regarding the decision and the impact? And then you can actually make the decision, if that makes sense.
Looking at your career comprehensively, I wonder if those past experiences came into play recently when you had to hire a football coach.
Immensely. I think you think you're prepared, you prepare for situations like that. In our situation, our football coach had a tremendous amount of success here at Appalachian, and we knew one day that he would be coveted by other universities. And so you prepare for those days. With us, 4 straight bowl wins, 3 straight conference championships. So you're preparing over the last 4 years with the success we've had in the sport of football. So you're ready, and you're, like every athletic director would say, you're kind of working your list. And then when you're at a school where you're just kind of waiting for somebody to come, hire your coach away from you, that the waiting is probably the hardest part, because you don't know when you can kind of put that plan in action. But as soon as you do, then you have a plan and you put it in action. I think, as anybody would tell you, there's no perfect plan, and for us, we had a plan, we put it in action, worked as well as we could have imagined, but there's always curveballs, and there certainly was in this search as you're going through it. And, for us, we found out on a Monday night, so we started our search in earnest on a Tuesday. And I think, then we had to go for a bowl trip, and then, so get interviews, go on a bowl trip, hire a coach, have a snowstorm in Boone that, restricts travel to Boone for 24 to 48 hours. We're trying to get candidates in for the final interview with our chancellor. And, so all of those things you can't prepare for. So we had it laid out pretty well, and certainly the experiences that I've had helped me in the preparation. But once you get in it, it's, things are flying around pretty fast, and you got to rely on your preparation. And, I found myself in that search, and I even sent Mike a text afterwards. There's things that he taught me that would happen, and you think if you got the perfect search, those won't happen, but they always do. And so some of those curveballs, I was ready for, but you're never really ready for them, because you just think it's going to just go perfectly. But had it not been for that preparation, it would have been a lot more stressful. But it certainly helped, all of those experiences that you can lean back on, all the relationships, because you're talking to a lot of people that you've met and know in the industry. Those all help you. So it's certainly a culmination of your experiences, and then all of a sudden it's go time, and you got 7-8 days that you want to try to make a hire in, and you've got to do everything that entails, contractual logistics and in the interview process. So it's certainly a culmination of all of your experiences, and then compressed in about a 7-day period.
I would imagine you just, over your career, you develop good habits, right? And so you get into this pressure situation where you got to hire a coach and do your research and your background, and the habits you've developed, as you've mentioned in different words, but the habits you've developed throughout your career help you to be able to exist under pressure and make good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, some are longer, some are shorter. You looked at some of the, the hires that were made this off season. Some folks made them really, really quick. Some last a little bit longer. So even within that preparation and the habits that you formed, there's no perfect timeline. It's different for different people in different universities, but it goes back to the same thing we talked about from a habit forming. Make sure the constituents are involved that need to be involved every step of the way, even when things are moving as fast as they're moving over that period of time. And they're moving fast, but you can't misstep. And if you have attention to detail, have formed those habits, you're prepared. You have your checklist, you have your candidate profiles, then those things all help you get through the process.
Well, Doug, this has been an excellent conversation in terms of what you've done and what you're currently doing. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Likewise, Todd, thanks for having me. I appreciate all you do for college athletics.
That was Doug Gillin. He's the Director of Athletics at Appalachian State University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.